We are in the closing days of a campaign, but we know the coronavirus crisis will stay with us well past the election. Let's just look at some of these numbers right now, and they are horrific. 37 states, that's the red and the orange. We do politics red and blue. Red and orange here, those are states that have more new COVID infections right now than a week ago, and there are 37 of them. 9 states holding steady, only 4 reporting fewer infections right now compared to a week ago. This is where you see the troubling weeks and perhaps months ahead. Look at the trend line, going almost straight up. A new record Friday. Last week was a week of record high case counts, 99,000. The experts say 100,000 is in our near future. A little bit down on Saturday, but the trend line there going straight up. This was the summer peak, 77. You can see 20,000 plus over that already and counting as we head up. This, too, a painful graphic in the sense that for all the cases, the death rate has stayed down a bit, but it is starting to trend up. Friday went over 1,000. Let's hope they're wrong, but the experts say days of over 1,000, maybe 1,500 are in our very near future. Let's hope they're wrong about that. If you just look at this tells you sort of the months we've been through. In April, the Northeast getting it mostly, a little bit down in Louisiana, some spots around the country. By July, the summer surge, you start to see much more red. Here's where we are now. This is pretty much all across America. Yes, some areas darker than others, but all of America right now involved in this fall surge of coronavirus cases. To make that point, 31 states had record case counts this past week. 31. The president says we've rounded the corner. That tells you that's simply not true as more states post these records. And in the final days of a campaign, this is what people are seeing. This is what people are seeing. These are battleground states, but all across America. States near shortage of ICU beds. Regencies, most virus cases since August. Virus continues to surge. People are getting sicker. Let's bring into our conversation now our veteran CNN political commentators, the Democrat Paul Begala and the Republican Alice Stewart. And Alice, that's the question I want to ask you first. I get the president's in the middle of a campaign. I get the inconvenience of this, but this is his job. This is his job. Not once in recent days or weeks as this surge has started has the president done an event at the White House as president, not as candidate, as president, to just walk the American people through what is happening. Even if he wants to defend his policy, the voters can decide whether they like it or not. Why not?
Well, certainly that's not a great messaging for him. And the reality is, John, and I think we all three can agree, the numbers you just outlined are the real reason why we're seeing 92 million Americans vote early. They are motivated, to vote early and use caution and social distance. But the coronavirus is a big factor. That's also why we're seeing Joe Biden using that as part of his closing argument. He's pushing COVID as well as character, and he's really stressing what he feels as the administration's inaction on COVID. And the president is out there. Certainly he talks about what he is going to do with COVID and has done with regard to PPE and working on getting a vaccine and contact tracing and to some degree encouraging people to wear masks and social distance. But he is driving home the closing argument of safety and prosperity and really trying to steer away from COVID, but really focusing on the economic opportunities that the last 4 years he has created and what he plans to do moving forward.
Paul, I have the 2016 map up here, and a lot of Democrats, obviously, who thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, will be grateful when we don't use this as the template anymore when we move on to a new election. But when you look at the map in the final weeks, we've gone through the polling in the program here. You know, Joe Biden seems to have a steady lead in Michigan and Wisconsin. But the big question this time, you and I met a long time ago when it was Governor Bill Clinton of Arkansas running for president. And he did change the map some because he was from Arkansas, and he put together, he won Georgia, for example. In one of his campaigns, he won Arizona. Do you see this as a map-changing election?
I do, John. I do. First, it's good to see you again. Back in Clinton's days, by the way, we were planning his campaign. California had gone Republican in 9 out of the 10 previous elections. 9 out of 10. It was the most reliably red big state in America. Now Texas is. And I know you think I'm crazy, but Texas is going to go blue. It hasn't gone Democrat, of course, since Jimmy Carter in 1976. In fact, no Democrat has won a statewide election since 1994. But there has been a surge in voting. Texas is usually last, 49th or 50th in voting. It's number 1 in voting now. 9 million Texans have voted. This is led by a surge of young people. 1.4 million young people have voted in Texas already. MJ Hagar, the Democratic candidate there, is rallying people. She's given John Cornyn the race of his life. I think she's going to knock him off. So it's things like that. You have a similar situation in Georgia, which Bill Clinton did win, but no Democrat has won since. Same thing. You've got huge rallying of the Democratic base. and you have the suburbs collapsing for Mr. Trump. So I think we're seeing that in a lot of states.
So, Ellis, that's the point, and I'll clear this and bring up Texas. We'll see if Mr. Begala's hopes for his home state of Texas are correct. But that Paul makes the key point. Democratic voters are motivated by their anti-Trump animus. So we expect high turnout among progressives. We're seeing if Democrats can deliver up to Election Day with African Americans and Latinos. But the suburbs are the key. In 2018, in the Dallas suburbs, the House Democrats added a seat. In the Houston suburbs, Harris County, one of the fastest growing places in America, Democrats picked up a seat in the House. That is the challenge. Why have the suburbs of the United States, including in a state we used to think of as ruby red, why are they turning against this president?
Well, a lot of that is what we're seeing is with regard to women voters and his ability to connect with them. Look, I think Democrats have made tremendous inroads in Texas. I spent a lot of time there in the Cruz campaign, and they have really started to blaze the trail to turn that state blue. I don't see it happening at this point. I think it will be tremendously close. I don't see it happening. And likewise, in my home state of Georgia, Stacey Abrams did a great job of leaning Georgia to the blue column, but I still see that staying as a Republican state. And I think we're looking at the battle of the Sun Belt versus the Rust Belt. We're looking at these Sun Belt states. We're looking at Florida, North Carolina, Arizona. Those are very tight. I see Trump bringing those home on Election Day, but we're looking at the Rust Belt states. I think the Trump campaign has a little bit more of a challenge. We're looking at Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Of course, we know Pennsylvania has been, for the Democratic candidates, the last 6 presidential elections until 2016 for Trump. So it is an uphill battle. With Joe Biden going there before Election Day to make the closing argument, it will help to bring the Democrats to his side. But I do see the President Trump having a good day on Election Day with regard to these Sun Belt states, because these numbers are super close and very tight, and they have a good ground game, and I see them turning folks out in these key states.
Well, to that point, Paul, the Democrats in many places, not all, but in many places are encouraged by the early voting, but the key to in the end is execution. Execution, and Alice mentioned, let me pull the map back out, and again, we're using the 2016 map right now because this is where Donald Trump cracked the so-called blue wall. Those were states going back to your win with Bill Clinton in 1992. Until 2016, these states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, had been in the Democratic fold since 1992. Trump flipped them. What are you hearing from Democrats in the final days? Even in places where they think, okay, we're good with early voting, can they sustain it to the end? Because if you bank a bunch of votes early, but then you don't deliver the rest on Election Day, Trump does it again.
Absolutely, John. And they are haunted by that. I've talked to, of course, I do this for a living. I talked to, for example, Lavora Barnes, who's the Democratic chairwoman of the state party in Michigan. She knows to the exact number how many they lost Michigan by the last time. I talked to Ben Wickler, the chairman of the Wisconsin Democratic Party. Same thing. He's fanatically turning people out. I had a long talk with my old friend and former colleague, Senator Bob Casey, this week to really get a briefing on Pennsylvania. Everyone in those Rust Belt swing states that Alice referred to in the Democratic Party is just working their hearts out, and they are starting to walk with pride now. They've been shell-shocked, and they have PTSD from 2016, but there's been an attitude change this week. Some of it is Trump's campaigning, though, John. Newton's third law of physics still applies. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So Trump has these rallies, and they rally his base, and he's got great performance skills, and I respect that. But when he does that, he is spreading COVID. He is frightening seniors and motivating the Democratic base. Pennsylvania is the second oldest population of any state in America. And there's a study out of Stanford out today, or yesterday, that says Trump's rallies, just his rallies, have caused 30,000 cases of COVID and 700 deaths. If you're a senior citizen sitting in Pennsylvania and you watch these super spreader events, we shouldn't call them rallies, super spreader events, yeah, it motivates his base, but I'm telling you, it is turning out seniors, a cohort that Trump won, and turning them out for Biden.
Well, we'll be counting them on Tuesday to see if they do turn out. Our medical team's a little skeptical of the findings of that Stanford study. I want to make sure we get that on the record, but there's no question the president is holding rallies with people packed in closely, and there's some data of Minnesota, for example, that there are cases from them. Whether it's our highest, that Stanford study, we're not quite so sure, but Paul Begala, Ellis Stewart, grateful for your insights on this final weekend, and that's it for Inside Politics. Hope you'll join us weekdays as well, especially in this big week ahead. We're here at 11 a.m. and noon Eastern. Up next, a very special 2-hour State of the Union with Jake Tapper. Thanks again for sharing your Sunday. Stay safe. Vote.